we have the next situation, and this is something that you're going to do quite often. We're going to have actually a proof that includes finding complex solutions by completing the square. So just really quickly, sometimes this formula for completing the square, this is standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. Sometimes when a and c are both perfect squares, you might see, not always, you might see a perfect squared trinomial. It is much easier when your leading coefficient is 1, and all of these, they've purposely created perfect square trinomials for us to factor. So I'm going to show you something. If my leading coefficient is 1, this can be literally factored by taking the square root of that x squared, which is x, your middle sign, which is plus, and the square root of 16, which is 4, and writing squared next to it. And I'm going to show you that this actually works out. If I came down here and I FOILed this out, x plus 4, there's my x squared. Here's a 4x, right? This inner one right here is also 4x, and I'm just distributing using FOIL, and there's 16. So we can see that that 8x is still there. I still got my x squared and my 16. All right. Let's go ahead and, again, the square root of that first one on b is x, the middle sign, plus the square root of 9 is 3, and we factored that again. We're going to go one more time. Square root of this, and this one's a little bit different in that my middle sign is a minus. The square root of 49 is 7, that quantity squared right there. Now, I want you to see something. All right. When given an expression in the form of x squared plus bx, it is sometimes necessary to rewrite it as a perfect square. All right. To do this, we complete a process called completing the square. All right. So the question is always this, and there's a formula down here, but let's go ahead and take this guy. All right. Let's say they didn't give us that 49. We just had x squared minus 14x. What would I have to add to this to get the 49? Well, if I look at this, I mean, if I divide 14 and a half, that's 7, and I square it, it's 49. Let's see if that works here. I divide 6 and a half, that's 3, and I square it, it's 9. If I come down here and do the same thing, I divide 8 and a half, that's 4, and 4, well, it sure works. So what you really need to do is you need to take your middle term, you divide it in half, and square it. So once again, my middle term here is 14, so if I added 7 squared, half of that squared, I would once again get that format that we saw up here. So I'm going to go to the third page here, and I'm going to show you how to solve. And I will do one for you. All right. So here are the steps. All right, and then I'm going to give you one to solve. So it says write the equation in x squared plus bx equals c. So we're going to have to subtract 17. So I'll write it up here, the step. Then I'll come down here and I'll go x squared plus bx equals negative 17. And let's go ahead. I wrote x squared bx. I should have kept that 8 down here. All right. And then it says identify what half of b squared is. So that would be 8 divided by 2 squared. So we can see it's 16. All right. So we're going to add that to both sides. I'm going to add 16 here. I'm going to add 16 here. And I'm going to get this. I'm going to get x squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to negative 1. All right. Well, now we know we can factor and solve because this is a perfect square trinomial. We've made it into one. So if I take the square root of that, that's x. This sign right here, which is plus, and the square root of that is 4 squared, is equal to negative 1. So there's our steps. You're going to use these down the bottom. All right. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. If I take the square root of this side, it's just x plus 4. I go positive or negative, and we realize the square root of negative 1 is an imaginary number, I. And then I subtract 4, and I get x equals negative 4 plus or minus I, and that is my solution. I'm going to do one more for you. All right, I'm just going to follow those steps. First, I'm going to solve for the x squared minus 2x, so I subtract 7 on both sides. All right, and I get x squared minus 2x equals negative 7. I'm going to find half of that squared. So negative 2 divided by 2 squared. This gives me negative 1 squared, which is 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, not 1. So now I'm at step 3. And I get 2x squared minus 2x plus 1. Notice that I made a little mistake. That's just x squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to negative 6. This should be a perfect square now, so I'm going to factor it. Square root of the first term, the middle sign, don't forget the middle sign. And then square root of that term squared equals negative 6. All right. I take the square root of both sides. Let's write it. All right. I'm going to go ahead and write it right here. So I got x minus 1 equals positive or negative. Let's go ahead and put that I right here. I rad 6. We'll get that negative outside with our imaginary number. And then we just add 1. Plus 1, plus 1. And our final answer is x equals 1 plus or minus I radical 6. I'm going to box that. I'm going to highlight one for you to try. Please use the steps, and we'll talk about this next time I see you in class. Alright, that's this video. You guys, I will see you soon.